Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this really fun and cute fascinator. It's made out of felt and we decorate it using applique techniques and also rhinestones or feathers or whatever else you want to use. It's attached to your head using a headband, so it's really comfortable to fit, and then it stays on your head very well. So let's get started. In order to make the Raven Fascinator, you're going to need the following items. You're going to need an assortment of wool felt, and here I have a color for my base, for my raven and tree branch, and then for the moon. For the base, you don't really need that much. The Fascinator base pattern is 6x4, and you need to cut out 2 of those. So you just need to make sure you have enough of that. And then for the raven and the moon, you just need scraps. You also need some fusible fleece, and you just need 1 of the Fascinator base size, so 6x4. You're going to need some featherweight boning. You're going to need our pattern pieces, which you can find on our website. Then you need whatever you want to use to attach the Fascinator to your hair. So whether that be a comb, bobby pins. In my case, I'm going to be using a headband, so I have a headband here. You're going to need some embroidery floss. Then whatever else you want to use to decorate. In my case, I have rhinestones, but buttons, feathers, anything else. Then you just need scissors, straight pins and needles, and then some fabric glue if you need to glue on some items such as the rhinestones. So now let's get started what you need to cut out in each color. So to go over again what we need of each pattern piece, for the Fascinator base, you need 1 out of the fusible fleece and 2 out of your main color. Out of your contrasting color, in my case it's the black, I'm going to cut 1 out of the raven and then 1 out of a tree branch, which I don't have the pattern because it's really tiny and all it is a V. You could just make the tree branch whatever shape you want. And then out of the moon, you can either cut 1 out of one color, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a moon out of this color, a moon out of that color, make one a little bit smaller and layer them on top of each other. So I'm going to get them all cut out and then we're going to move on to the next step. After I cut out all my pieces, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1 piece of fusible fleece and I'm going to iron it on to the wrong side of one of my Fascinator bases. Now, even though I used the same pattern piece, I trimmed it about 1/4 of an inch all the way around because I don't want it sticking out past my base here. So I'm just going to lay it on top of each other. And the bubble side, the side that has that rough texture, that's going to go to the wrong side of the base. So I'm going to take an old cloth here and I'm going to dampen it. And the one thing that you really want to make sure is that your iron setting is not too hot. Because felt is a synthetic, if it's too hot, you'll melt the fibers in the felt. So you definitely want it on a synthetic or low setting. We just want it to temporarily stick to the felt so then we can finish stitching our pieces on. It just gives it a little extra body for our fascinator. So I'm going to check this out, and it's sticking and my felt is not melted, so that is great. So now we're going to move on to the next step. So here we have our other pieces. This is our Fascinator base with the fusible fleece on the bottom. And then I have my other pieces. So the fun part is we're going to lay this out how we want it. And here I have my 2 moons, layer one on top of the other. And I'm going to put it right here. I just kind of like to have a little bit of the moon sticking outside the Fascinator base, so it gives it a little bit more uniqueness. My tree branch, I'm going to put about there. And then I'll have my crow on top of the branch, something like that. And again, I like having the feathers kind of sticking out. So then once you kind of have an idea of your design, it's a good idea, at least in this case, is I'll remove the raven, but we'll sew on the moon and then we'll do the tree branch since it's all underneath the raven. So it just makes it a little easier. So once you have an idea of how you want it, it's always a good idea to pin them into place. And then we'll get a little closer because I'll be showing you which kind of stitch. We're going to be using a running stitch in order to attach this, and also a back stitch in order to do the rest of the tree branches, so it gives it more of a craggly look. So we'll get a little closer for that shot. To do a running stitch, I'm going to get 2 strands of embroidery floss that's been knotted on a needle, and you're going to take your needle and come up from underneath And I'm just stitching on my inner moon because that'll also go through the outer moon, so I don't have to do it twice. So here's where my stitching came out. I'm just gonna go down through all layers now, just a little ways away from where it came out. And now I'm gonna come up again a little ways past where that last stitch was. So I'm just gonna go up and down, up and down. And the thing is, with the parts that's sticking off the top edge of your fascinator, you don't have to worry about stitching that. I'm just stitching the part that meets with the fascinator. So like with the raven tail, if you have it so it's sticking out past the edge of the fascinator, you don't have to worry about that part. We just want to make sure that it's all tacked down and it's not going to come off. So I'm just going to finish stitching this piece and then my branch, and then I'll show you how I do the little pieces of tree branch that come off using embroidery stitching as well. If you want to give the tree branch more character, what you can do is have some embroidery floss on your needle, come up from underneath, and then go into your main tree branch a little bit more. And you can create little offshoot branches like that. If you want to do something more, I'll start here. I'm going to come up a little ways from the tree branch, and what I'm going to be doing is a back stitch in order to make a longer offshoot. So now I'm going to come up a little ways ahead of that last stitch and go back directly into my first stitch, so it's all connected. You can never do this perfect or the same way twice, so it definitely gives it character. And now I'm going to come up a little ahead of that and come back to the stitch that was in front of it. And then maybe there's a little branch that's coming off of that. So you can make it any way you want. So I'm just going to finish doing this, and then I'm going to attach my crow just as I did with the moon and the main part of the branch using the running stitch. And then from there we can go on and decorate it any way we wish, with rhinestones or with feathers or whatever you want. So I'm going to finish doing my running stitch and then we'll show you the completed version. So here I have the top of my fascinator with all my pieces sewn on, and then I went ahead and I used my fabric glue to glue on a couple of rhinestones here. So that's the fun part, is you get to play with it and do as much or as little as you want in order to make it fun and unique for you. So now we're going to move on to the second half of the fascinator, so then we can work on putting these two together. Here we have the other part of our fascinator base, and so this is going to be the bottom. You'll see this is the one that doesn't have any interfacing on it. And here I have a piece of my Featherlight Boney, and you just need a small piece. It's just going this direction, so it's about 6 inches. I think it's actually a little shorter than 6 inches because I don't want it sticking out. And you'll see how the Boney naturally has a curve. So I like using it because it'll always, whatever I'm sewing it to, it'll take on that curve. So what I'm going to do to the wrong side of this, I'm going to turn this, so now the curve is going this direction, and I'm going to press it like this. And you have a choice here. You can either, on your sewing machine, very carefully go right along the edge here as close as you can get. So you're going to be stitching on this side, and then you're going to be stitching on this side as well. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a running stitch on both sides, just as you would do with a machine. So you're just going from one end to the next, and the reason why I'm doing it by hand instead of the machine is because the boning has a piece of plastic in there, and you really have to be careful with the machine that your needle doesn't hit that plastic or it might break. So just with hand sewing, I'm going slower, I have greater control, and I can be more careful. So if you want to do a running stitch, just as you sewn on your other pieces on the top part of the fascinator, you would do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this side and then stitch this side all the way down to this end, and you'll see this piece will start to curve up like that, which is exactly what we wanted to have. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that, and then we're going to work on putting the two pieces together. So now here we have the bottom and here's the top. Now if you were going to attach a hair comb to the bottom of this, I would do this at this point. You just flip it over to the right side and go ahead and tack it on. But if you're doing the headband like me, the first step you're going to do, and you would do this after you attach the hair comb if you were doing that, is you're just going to lay it on top of each other. So the boning is going to be on the inside. And then I'm going to pin all the way around. And we're going to do a blanket stitch all along the outside of this, attaching it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning this, and then we'll move closer so I can show you the blanket stitch. I'm going to go ahead and start doing this blanket stitch right along this edge here. And if you notice that the bottom or the top of your base of the fascinator is overlapping with the other one, you can go ahead and trim it because you want it to be all even all along the edge like this is here. So I've already started and I have my embroidery thread, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come from behind my project up towards me and pull this through. And you'll see now you have a loop here at the top. And before you pull this loop all the way through, you're going to go from behind the loop and come towards you again, like that. And then carefully pull it through and pull it tight. So that strand will end up right on top of the seam there. So let me show you again. I'm going to come from behind or behind the project up towards me. Creates a loop. I'm going to go from behind the loop up towards me, and then I'm going to pull it just like that. Now here I have my moon. I'm just going to pull it forward so I can go behind it, and then my blanket stitch will be hidden behind that moon, which is fine. My loop, I'm going to go through the loop from behind up towards me and pull it. And you want to pull it, you don't want to do too tight, but you do want to do tight enough so then it looks nice and neat. Loop, go through the loop from behind, pull it. And you're just going to do this all the way around the whole thing. So from behind towards you, create a loop and go through the loop. Being careful not to catch your pins, which I'm doing right now. And then you're just going to pull it just like that. So that's all you need to do in order to do the blanket stitch. At this point, we're ready to attach our fascinator to our headband. So what I do is I take my headband, just a plain headband without the fascinator, I put it on my head, and then I lay the fascinator on top of my head how I would like it to lay. So then I pinch it together with the headband as I remove it from my head and mark it with pins. That way I can keep it exactly how I want it. And what I like to do is put my fascinator a little bit out of an angle, so the center is not going to line up perfectly with the headband there. It's kind of at an angle. I then cut little strips which I lay across the headband, attaching the sides to the bottom of my fascinator. So I've already done this one with some whip stitches all the way around, so I'll show you how to do that on this side, and then we'll be done and ready to wear a fascinator. Okay, this is always my favorite part because it means I'm almost done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up between these layers here, so my knot is going to be hidden underneath the strip here. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of the bottom of the fascinator. Don't go through to the top because we don't want these stitches showing on the other side. And then come up through the strip, like that. And I'm going to go just a little ways from that, grab a little bit of the bottom of the fascinator again, come up through the strip. And then I'm just going to go all the way around in this fashion, just like that. So grab a little bit of the fascinator up through the strip, and this should secure the strip, holding the headband into place. And then once we're done with that, we are done. Here we have our finished fascinator. Everything has been stitched on and finished with the sparkly rhinestones and the blanket stitch all the way around. If I rotate it, you'll see it's secured now on my headband. So now it's ready to wear and to enjoy.